All right, the Pelicans win their final preseason game, and there was a lot to like with Zion Williamson dominated on defense. And with Trey Jemison coming up big in the second half, could he get a two-way deal? Plus, let's answer your questions in a live post-game Locked On Pelicans. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pelicans, your daily New Orleans Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On Pelicans, the daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Pelicans at NBA, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, available wherever you get your podcasts and available on YouTube where we are live right now. I'm your host, Pelicans Insider, credential member of the media, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. Here with y'all live Tuesday night. This counts as the Wednesday show here. We're coming to you immediately after the Pelicans beat the Orlando Magic 104-92. Finally getting a win in preseason. They're 1-3, but at least it's not a 0 in that first column, and that makes us feel a little bit better. And there was a lot to like in this game, actually. I think you saw more of the Pelicans that we're going to see in the regular season with Zion dominating and other guys stepping up. BI was good in this one, too. So thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, coming to you like nobody else is. Make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Become an everydayer. Support the show by listening Monday through Friday. I see a couple of y'all in the chat here saying you're an everydayer. Jason Sims is an everydayer there. I see ABJ504. I'm so happy you're here, my man. He's an everydayer. There's a couple of other everydayers in here I saw as well. I'd love to see that you're all talking. Vins is an everydayer here. Scott Brantley is an everydayer. I love it. If you're an everydayer, let me know in the comments down below. So we'll get into your questions throughout the show, and we'll definitely spend a little bit more time on them in the third segment. We're going to have to keep the show to like normal time today. So let's just jump right into kind of the biggest story here. When you look at this game, the 104-102 win, what's the thing? This is how I do kind of post games. If you want to peek behind the curtain a little bit on my thought process, when I do post game shows and recaps, you watch the game. You don't need me to just read you the box score and things like that. We have to talk about kind of the biggest story. The biggest story here is Zion Williamson. 16 points on 6 of 8 shooting, which is phenomenal. 4 of 5 from the free throw line. 3 assists. And none of those are the thing that we're most impressed with, that aren't the biggest thing when it comes to the box score with him. If you're watching right now, what is the biggest stat from Zion in this game? I'll pause for dramatic effect here. Young Kilminati says, I like the defense from Zion. Yes, that is it. Brandon Thibodeau says, everydayer here as well. Stephanie Wilson says, everydayer. Josh says, what up, Jake? What up, Josh? So it was Zion on defense. We have not seen a game like that from him in a very long time. And that was Zion at his best when it comes to defense. When he was coming into the league, one of the things that always jumped out at me when you watched his game film at Duke and things like that is that he has just this instinctual nose for the ball. He knows when to jump passing lanes. He knows when someone is not holding the ball too strongly and to go up and grab it. Remember his first summer league game in Vegas with the earthquake, where Kevin Knox got like the inbound or something, or grabbed a rebound, whatever it was, and Zion just went up to him and ripped the ball out, and he kind of fell on the ground. Zion was doing that stuff here. He was forcing turnovers, which led to transition opportunities for the team, and it was absolutely beautiful. You know, there are a lot of questions of, is Zion engaged? Does he care? Does he try? Shoot, even my dad asked me that question, and he might actually be here in the show watching this, so shout out, Dad, if you're here, that he wondered, you know, does Zion have kind of like the heart? Does he have the will to go out and do all the effort and things like that? And you saw in this game, a preseason meaningless game, that dude just go with a level of intensity that we haven't seen from him all of the time. He's capable of doing this. You know, he's not going to be an elite rim protector or anything like that. He's the type of guy that is going to have to just kind of wreak havoc on the perimeter with his athleticism. And like, my goodness, he did that. If he wants to get into the MVP conversation, that's how you do it. The points and the scoring are going to be there. And again, 16 points on 8 shots is absurd efficiency. When you look at points per shot, which is what you look at a lot of the time with efficiency, anything over like 1.3 is really good. 1.5 points per shot is elite. 2 points per shot is really good. That's essentially shooting like a true shooting percentage of like 100%. It's not, because it's not factoring in threes, and he was 0 for 1 from 3. But he did just an incredibly good job out there being active, had 2 blocks as well. That's the type of game that you look and you go, oh, okay, like they're going to be fine. You know, Brandon Ingram was good in this one. 18 points on 50% shooting. 6 assists, being the playmaker that you wanted to see from him. They were using Zion Williamson off ball well. There's a little bit of hiccups with that here and there, but you started to see Zion moving and trying to fill lanes. I remember at one point, Brandon Ingram in the first half, was on the left side of the 3-point line, drove down to the baseline and attacked kind of coming from the short corner. Zion was on the opposite wing, above the break 3-point line, kind of chilling, and he starts to curl around so that he can just run straight down the paint while Zion is going baseline. While BI is going baseline, Zion's trying to fill the paint so that BI can then just hit him as he's coming down the lane, because no one is keeping track of him. Ended up in a turnover as Zion lost the ball. But that type of game plan is there, and if Zion just catches that cleanly, that's 2 points. Probably with an and 1 too, because he's going to get fouled. So all of this was exactly what you want to see from the team. My only real complaint from the starters here, one was they were struggling with rebounding at times. That also had to do with Jonas Valanciunas getting in foul trouble early, so they had to go with the Zion at the 5 lineup, and there is definitely still some issues with rebounding when they go that super small pseudo-death lineup, I think. But they'll get there, I think, eventually with everything. So I feel pretty good about them after this. You know, as I've said, this preseason is not something you need to worry about too much. 0 for 3 certainly isn't fun, but it's not the end of the world as long as they start to figure some things out. And with the players they have in Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram, you know, it's not like they need like tons and tons of reps necessarily. Those guys can go out and do it. So the 6 assists for Brandon Ingram in kind of the playmaker creator role was absolutely great. Zion doing everything he does, just being a hyper efficient player and then showing it on the defensive side of the ball. Oh, I love it so much. I hope you love it too. That was so cool. That was a lot of fun. I am excited. Nice to end preseason on a very high note. Now we've got to wait 8 days, Wednesday, for the opener for the Pelicans. They'll put some more things in, but I definitely think that all of these guys are going to end up truly being okay. And we haven't even seen the Pelicans at full strength with their rotation being shortened and things like that. So coming up, we'll get to more of your questions here. We'll also talk a little bit about 2-way contracts. Trey Jemison, Crutcher looking good as well. I liked what we saw from them, Jalen Crutcher. Maybe they can earn a spot. I'm pretty happy with what we saw from the Pelicans in this game. Let's talk about it even more in a live episode. Your questions too. Coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Before we get to that, though, today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by Birddogs. Look, I love Birddogs shorts and now pants, and I'll tell you about those here too. Because the Birddogs stretch khaki short, they just fit so well. You have regular shorts that are just made of a stiff, restricting cotton. They look like they look. There's no flexibility. That's that. But the Birddogs stretch khaki short fits a little bit slimmer through the thigh, so it gives you a really truly sculpted look. You just look good when you put these on. And you're also not restricted because they've created a cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki, but it stretches, so you get the best of everything, that slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. And they also use an anti-stink sweat wicking fabric, so it keeps you cool, so you can wear them in our brutal Louisiana summer that we just had. And now that it's cooling off, they make joggers, they make pants. So if you need a pair to play golf, for work, to look sharp on a date, Birddogs are good for any occasion. And when it gets cool, you got the long pants that you can wear, so you can wear them all the time, which is what I do. So give Birddogs a try. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA or enter promo code LockedOnNBA at checkout for a free Birddogs water bottle with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA for a free water bottle at checkout. You won't want to take your Birddogs off. I don't. We promise you that. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday breaking down everything you want to know about this Pelicans team, the number one Pelicans podcast out there. I'm excited. We got so many of y'all here in the live chat after the game. We're going to do these more. I'm going to even try and go live from the arena at times and just record there right after a game. It might take a little bit to kind of figure that out. We might need to do it as a bonus show in case something goes wrong, but that's the plan. I like hanging out with y'all. I want to hang out with y'all right after the game where we can react to everything together, and I love seeing the comments flying here. So thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. For your second listen, go check out the Locked On Saints podcast. Planning to see Ross Jackson the next day, this week at some point. I love him. He's the best. He's breaking down everything you want to know about black and gold, so check them out. Are they good? Are they probably not good? And how bad is it really? So, also, if you want to support the channel, become an everydayer, do that. Listen Monday through Friday. If you're an everydayer, keep shouting it out in the comments. I love it. And if you really want to support the channel, we got the Locked On Pelicans Insiders group. The link is in the description down below of this podcast, and you can text me, and I can text you back. It's really cool. $4.99 a month. You can cancel anytime if you don't like it. There's a 14-day free trial. Show's still free and 5 days a week for y'all. ABJ504 says smash the like button. You got to listen to the number one Locked On Pelicans fan. I don't know if you even want to be called that, but he comments every single day. West Bank Rick, I'll see you at the arena. He says my team every day here. Leah Drew says it's her first time, I think, in here. Did I see that right? Finally made it in here live. Thank you for joining. There are so many comments. They're flying so fast. I'm actually not doing a good job looking at all of these. So we'll get to your questions here in a second. I might ask you to put them back in the chat. That's how fast things are going here. Maurice Willis says, we need James Harden. No, they don't. No, you don't. That's not at all what they need. Probably no one needs James Harden other than the Philadelphia 76ers. ABJ says, as I text you comment, I know you do, so it's pretty great. No, you canceled it. You've got to re-sign up for it. I looked at it. It said you canceled it. You've got to re-sign up, so I don't get your texts anymore. But that would really, I would laugh if you were sending me texts that just say comment through the thing. So let's go back to the game. We'll hang out more. I'll interact with y'all a little bit more the second half of this segment and the third segment of today's show. So I want to not focus on some of the main guys here because there still are roster decisions for the New Orleans Pelicans. You know, they have an open two-way spot, and I think you saw two players really show out in this game and try and make a case for that. The first one is Trey Jemison. I've liked him all training camp from what we've seen from him in the limited minutes that he's gotten in preseason. I think he's looked pretty good. And this dude, y'all, is just a bulldozer. It's like a Mack truck. He is a big man out there. You know, for the Pelicans who need another mobile center, maybe, even though I do think Cody Zeller is okay, and I see a lot of y'all asking why Cody Zeller's not playing. He's an aging vet. You don't need him to play in preseason. He's got some back tightness, soreness. It's not anything big. They just don't need to risk playing him, right? It's the same reason why Zion didn't play in the second half. You saw everything you needed to see out of him in the first half. Don't risk anything so you can just kind of move on from it all. But Trey Jemison here, 10 points, 5 of 6 shooting, and the biggest thing was 9 rebounds. 9 rebounds, including 7 defensive boards, including the dagger that sealed and iced the game away. He was good. He can get you a bucket down low. He moves pretty well on defense, too. And for a team that needs rebounding at times, because they tend to go small a lot with Larry Nance Jr. and struggled at times when Jonas Valanciunas wasn't even in the game, you know, I don't know if he's a long-term answer, but I think you could really see him dominating the game, and it could be a lot of fun to have him in the G League and on a two-way deal. So I really think that he is a guy that they should really look at. You know, you have a guard, Darion Sebron, right now. You have a wing in Kaiser Gates. Do you want to use your third two-way slot on a big man? I definitely think they do. And, you know, they were hoping maybe it would be Liam Robbins. They ended up waiving him the other day. I think that's why you could get Trey Jemison to do it. He looked good. Rebound. 2 Christopher R2 says rebounds. That's what we want. I agree with all of that. D-Max, I'll answer your question in the next segment here because I think we can talk about three-point shooting generally. And then David Hutchinson says he's an every dayer. I saw someone say they're like a sometimes every dayer. That works too. Look, if you listen 2 days a week, try listening 3. If you listen 1 day a week, listen 2. That supports the show tremendously as well. If everyone listened to one more day, if you're not already an everydayer, the show blows up even more, helps keep it free in 5 days a week for y'all. And that's what we want to do right here. So I loved what we saw from Trey Jemison with everything. I think just that big body makes a lot of sense, would do a lot for New Orleans. The other guy that stood out here was Jalen Crutcher. 8 points on 3 of 4 shooting. What I liked about him was the 3-point shooting, 2 of 3. He was also trying to be active in moving the offense as well. He had 3 assists in this. This is a guy that succeeded in the G League the past couple of years playing for Charlotte. So he's got some experience with all of that. He's a guard. Maybe they want more shooting. Maybe they want more creation. Depends on how you feel Dyson Daniels can do. I thought he was actually kind of good in this game, even if, mainly defensively, even if he wasn't scoring or doing things, So there's options, but I think right now, if you're looking to fill one of those spots, it would be Crutcher or Jemison. Let me know if you have a preference. I see a lot of you saying that you want to see it be Trey Jemison here. So I think those are the type of things that, the Pelicans would be smart to do when it comes to some of the moves that they want to make and everything here. West Bank Rick says, I really think that Herb Jones will take another step up in his game. He hit a corner 3 in this one. That was big. One of the things we've seen from him is his 3-point shooting's been like a little bit more reliable in preseason. Teams are leaving him open. When you watch it play, they don't defend him. And it's creating spacing issues at time for Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum. And CJ was iffy in this game, 11 points on 12 shots, 1 of 2 from 3, but did have 5 assists. So trying to move the ball and wasn't turning the ball over a ton. So that was good. With Herb out there, they're essentially playing 4-on-5 on offense, even though they have 5 guys on the court, because they're just not defending one of them. But here's what you're supposed to do with that. And that's make them pay for that. And Herb Jones has been doing that in the preseason by making his 3-pointers. So I've been pleased with what we've seen from him and the improvement in the 3-point shot. The final 20 games of the regular season, he shot 45% from 3, I think it was, on limited volume. But hey, that makes teams pay, and that's all you can really ask for when it comes to all of this. So I very much like that we are getting him these minutes, these looks, these opportunities. The area, let's talk about it coming up. We'll keep the 3-point theme shooting going because there was a question in there about it. All of y'all are saying Trey Jemison when it comes to the 2-way deal. I dig it. I like what you're doing here. We'll answer some of your questions. We'll talk about things coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Right now, though, I'm excited to tell you about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel. Right now, new customers, if you've never used FanDuel before, there's never been a better time. You get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 that you get in bonus bets, win or lose. You can bet on the preseason. You can bet on the regular season. You can bet on the Saints. They play on Thursday. They're a slight underdog against the Jacksonville Jaguars, but Trevor Lawrence might not be playing. Get in before the line potentially shifts if you're getting points. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action because the app is super easy to use. They have spreads, player props, over-unders, more. They have the same game parlays, which is what I love. Saints to win and the under, which is how it's been going. That works. Alvin Kamara over 40.5 rushing yards and the Saints to win. Those type of things are absolutely perfect to bet on. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season and the NBA season soon. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Okay, we are Locked On Pelicans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, doing a live show. We will be doing these after a lot of games this year. Almost every away game, I'm going to try and go live right away if I can. Tuesdays are a little bit tough because I do Locked On NBA that I'm going to go record right after this. Make sure you listen to that as your second listen on Wednesday. The national show, getting NOLA representation on there, talking about everything going on around the NBA, around the association. It is part of the Locked On Podcast Network as well. And we are talking about the Pelicans winning in preseason, not losing, winning, which is a really great thing to see here. So I'll answer some of your questions in here, but let's talk about the 3-point shooting. We were just talking about Herb Jones making teams pay. That is exactly what we want to see him do, because he's going to be left open. And the more you hit those threes, the more you make teams pay, all of a sudden you're not open anymore. And they're defending you a little bit more. And that creates more space for Zion, for Brandon Ingram, for CJ McCollum. You guys get how all of this works. One of the areas, though, they do need to improve on is 3-point shooting. And the question someone asked earlier is, do they have enough? Have they addressed all that? My hair's all over the place and it's bothering me as I look at this. That doesn't look better. So anyway, so the area that they're trying to kind of incrementally add more 3-point shots is corner threes. Look at when Brandon Ingram drives. Look at when Zion drives, even when CJ drives. They're shooters in the corners. And it's not like they did last year where it was Jackson Hayes in the corner and someone else, and those guys aren't shooters. There's 2 actual shooters in the corner, one of them maybe being Herb Jones. Imagine when Trey Murphy's back and he's in that corner 3 spot. Imagine if it's Jordan Hawkins who's been doing that too. All of those guys are capable of making more threes and increasing the Pelicans' 3-point volume with high efficiency shots. You know, when we talk about efficiency a lot here, you know, the most efficient shot in the league is a free throw. The second most efficient shot is a shot in the restricted area at the rim. The third most efficient shot is the corner 3, because it's shorter than an actual 3-pointer is. So there's a significant difference there. And that's why those corner 3s are so important. The short corners, what they call it. Because you tend to make those at a higher rate than you do above the break 3s, just because the distance is a little bit less. So increasing their corner 3-point attempts, which they were dead last in the league or second to last in corner 3-point attempts per game. I talked about this on the show if you're an everyday or a week or 2 ago. That's how you increase your 3-point shooting and make it better without adding a ton of volume, because there's not ever going to be a top 10 in 3-point shooting just because Zion and BI don't take a ton of threes. BI did say after practice the other day, he needs to take more open threes, catch and shoot threes, pull up dribble threes. That's important too. And those are the 2 biggest ways that they're going to add more threes here. So let's answer some of your questions for 5 or so minutes is what about the time we've got left. There's a ton of y'all in here. I'm actually kind of impressed, and I appreciate y'all like so much that you wanted to come in here and hang out with me and watch the show live after the game here. And so it's kind of blowing me away that we have like close to 200 something people watching this here in the moment. So I'm glad you're all excited. It also shows you New Orleans is a basketball city and the passion that Pelicans fans have here. So put your questions in the chat again, because I'm behind on everything here. And yeah, there you go. Mac2 Fleet says, who could be a sleeper fantasy pick on the Pelicans aside from the starters and Trey? It's probably, well, if you're not saying Herb Jones as one of them, that's where it actually kind of gets tough. I'm not sure. I would say, Herb, because I think he's going to hit a couple of threes. And if you're looking for that, he gives you threes, steals, and blocks. Those are pretty good categories that you need from them. I wouldn't say anyone else is like a very good fantasy player, though, because they're going to rotate those starters in and out, right? When you think of the rotation, you don't do a whole like 5-man second unit. There's going to be Zion or BI or CJ with them. So that's one of those things where they hurts kind of some of the other guys there. Maybe it's a guy like Kyra Lewis Jr. who they're trying to give some minutes to. He looked decent, still fast. That was really important to try and see. So I liked what we saw from him there. JH15 says, I got some center trade ideas for you. Nick Richards, Mark Williams, Wendell Carter, Daniel Gafford, Clint Capella, Kelly Olynyk. I think some of those names make sense. I'm not the biggest Gafford fan, but I think it would work. Capella, I think, works. Kelly Olynyk's fine. Of those guys, Capella's probably the best player, I think. That is who you would be going for. But again, he makes a lot of money. The fit's still a little bit clunky there, too. And that's kind of really the problem with all of it. Westbrank Rick says for the sleeper, Herb or Jordan Hawkins. Depends on injuries, if Hawkins in the rotation or not to start the year. And I think that's kind of the problem. Keith Cunningham says Hawkins is about 2 years off. And yeah, I agree with all of that. So I think that's where, if you're looking at it from a fantasy perspective, it could hurt things. Go check out the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast, though. Josh Lloyd is the GOAT when it comes to some of these things. He'll help you win your league. Locked On Fantasy Basketball. It's like an absolute beast of the show. Go pull it up on YouTube and look at the numbers that this guy does. And we're very lucky that he is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. A good friend of mine, too. I like talking to him. He's an awesome, awesome guy here. So let me keep going through some of the questions here in the chat. I like that you're all just talking with each other, too. So that's what's pretty awesome here. In the Locked On Pelicans Insiders Group, I forget who it was, though. They said there was a prediction that you're going to see the Pelicans get a top 5 seed. They're going to play OKC in the first round. I don't think Dyson's a sleeper. I just don't think he has enough offense for fantasy basketball to really give you what you need. Like, rebounds are good. The assists are going to be hit or miss with him. There'll be a couple of steals, but you need... The field goal percentage isn't going to be good there. He's not going to make threes. Those are the problems here and everything. Josh says, if Zion and the team could be a top 5 defense and offense in the league, we'll be a top 4 team in the West with home court in the playoffs and a chance to make a run and get to the conference finals. Yeah, if you have a top 5 offense, a top 5 defense, you're a good team. They were doing that. They were top 10 before Zion got hurt last year. That was a really big thing. So, yeah. Okay, let's keep it going. A couple more questions. Throw a few more at me, and then we got to wrap up. I got to go do Locked On NBA. JH15 still on the center train here. Do you think Miles Turner is overrated? Less overrated than he used to be. I thought last year was his best year, but I do think some of what he does is just like, with everything. Z-Rosh says, wait until Trey returns. 3-point shooter will go up. You could argue he's their 3rd or 4th best player, their 3rd or 4th best scorer, I think, even too. He's going to be really good. Mick Evander Frago says, I did not play in the second half, just rest things, no other issues. I hope so. He was amazing. Yeah, I don't think you needed to play him. You saw everything you needed from him in the first half, and it was totally okay and totally cool. Like, no reason to overthink anything when it comes to that. No issues whatsoever. That dude showed out in the first half, particularly defensively. Don't risk things. Just give him a break. Okay, let's end it there. That's where we're going to wrap up the live post-game show. Thank you all for joining me. This was awesome. We're going to do more of these, so stay tuned. If you're not subscribed to the YouTube page, please subscribe. Join the Locked On Pelicans Insiders group as well. It's a lot of fun. You get to text me. We can chat, whatever you want to know. I give people more information in there than I'll do anywhere else. Here, I'm putting the link in the chat right now. The Locked On Pelicans Insiders group. I'll give you all the trade rumors and things that I hear, probably exclusively in there with everything. So make sure you sign up for that if you want. You can always cancel. And as always, I'm your host, Jake Madison, at Nola Jake on Twitter. Coming back to y'all tomorrow, the rest of the week. No other live show this week. Saints play on Thursday, so I'm not going to do that. Again, make sure you're listening to Locked On Saints. This has been the Locked On Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.